it's just a pass-through. They don't care anymore. They got what they wanted with the gas plant construction, and they're good. And so as a result, regular folks are getting hurt.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Yeah, well, let's shift to the energy prices. A lot of people have been seeing pretty big energy price increases, and similar to some of the political shenanigans that we're shielded from because we get power from the TVA. I think we're also, to a certain extent, shielded from some of the rate hikes because our power is generated in large part by hydro and nuclear. So, there's... But people here are still seeing rate hikes. I can only imagine that it's worse down south of here. So talk to us about that. Why is it that our energy prices are increasing?
There's a ton of reasons, but the main one is an over-reliance on gas. And so, to your point about how we're still seeing increases here in the Tennessee Valley because we get our power from TVA, the more reliant a utility is on gas to generate electricity, the bigger the spikes, the bigger the burden is because of a lot of reasons, right? So there are COVID-related reasons, there are supply chain-related reasons, a big one being the war in Ukraine that's put a big damper on global supplies and is forcing a lot of American supplies out onto the global market to be exported to Europe and places in East Asia. So that's driving the price here at home up as a lot of our supplies that have traditionally been used domestically are now making their ways overseas. So there's a lot of reasons why gas prices are up, but the main reason is that we are essentially using way too much gas anyways to generate our electricity. And this is something that, just really grates at me and frustrates me and us at Energy Alabama, is the sense that, we went to the Public Service Commission. Alabama Power just got approval to buy and purchase more than 2 gigawatts of new gas. To put that in perspective, you're talking about probably a million to 2 million homes can be powered by that much juice. So that's a lot of new capacity that they added. And we argued, gas prices may have been low before, but they're not going to necessarily remain low forever.
Right.
Listen, this is not the first time we paid a lot of money at the pump. This is not the first time we've ever paid a lot of money for gas prices, for natural gas. So it's not unforeseeable that this wouldn't happen again. But, right. We and other advocates were ignored. And this has been happening around the country, right? So as a lot of utilities shut coal plants down, rather than build renewable energy or renewable energy plus battery storage, invest in things like reducing demand through things like energy efficiency and helping people save energy. Utilities that are, again, government, mandated monopolies that make money by building big power plants, they want to build big power plants. So that's what they did. And despite all of our protestations, they got approved, right? Because they controlled the Public Service Commission. And so now if you look at Alabama Power specifically, they are, way heavier on gas than TVA and many other utilities are. And so that's why you're seeing such a massive increase, because that fuel cost is really, really high. And it's being passed along directly to consumers. The second that gas prices on the market go up, they just file something with the Public Service Commission and says, hey, we need to charge regular folks more. Gas prices went up. But they have no burden. They have no skin in the game because it's just a pass-through. They don't care anymore. They got what they wanted with the gas plant construction, and they're good. And so as a result, regular folks are getting hurt.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like an issue. What do you know what the percentage of gas to generate electricity is that Alabama Power uses versus the TVA here in Huntsville, North Alabama?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head the exact mix. I could probably find that out, but it's probably, probably close to half, or I hate even to speak that. I could be wrong, but I know that the total coal and gas is well over 50% of their
for
energy
Alabama
mix.
Power.
So, yeah.
Gotcha.
Whereas it's a good bit lower for TVA.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So what are some of the things that maybe a motivated public service commission could be doing right now to try to bring down prices?
One that actually
prices?
Serves the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, a motivated public service commission would be, I think, the number one thing that they would be doing is investing heavily and forcing the utilities to invest heavily in energy efficiency. I mean, at the end of the day, the quickest and most important thing that we could do to help people reduce their bills is to reduce their consumption. And so, in Alabama, we don't have any energy efficiency programs whatsoever. I mean, we are the lowest in the country. Alabama Power ranks lowest of all utilities in the country. The Public Service Commission doesn't make them do anything on the energy efficiency front. So, we use a ton, A, because of our climate, B, because our regulators have been asleep at the wheel. And we also have decently high rates that are going up. So bills are really high here. So energy efficiency is clearly number one to me. Number two is really getting aggressive on renewable energy, especially with battery storage. If you think about replacing a gas plant, one of the big things that opponents to or I should say supporters of gas would say is, well, gas I can run whenever I want and I can fire it up, and your solar plant's only going to run when the sun's up. Mm-hmm. And if you look at a solar plant with about a 4-hour battery or even a little bit longer, you're getting to about 97 to 99% of the performance that you would get out of a gas plant. So what I mean by saying that is when you take a big battery plant and a big solar plant, you are essentially getting together the exact same operating characteristics as a gas plant. You can dispatch it when you want. You can use it when it's necessary. And listen, Alabama Power, to their credit, brought a few renewable energy projects to the commission a couple of years ago, and their own numbers said that they would actually help reduce the amount of money that customers would have to pay. So Alabama Power admitted to the commission that if it would just let it build some renewable energy, they could reduce their revenue requirement. They could potentially even reduce bills. But the commission denied it and didn't let them do that. So,
but they let him go forward with the gas plant.
Yeah. The one time that Alabama Power did something that was like halfway decent, you're like, okay, maybe we're getting somewhere. They still can't get that approved. Those renewable energy and battery storage projects would be gold right now because there's no fuel cost. There's no fuel cost to pass along. And that would put a direct reduction on how much gas Alabama Power has to go out and buy on the market at a very high rate right now.
And I really like what you open with energy efficiency, because I think there's an opportunity there to create a lot of jobs, sending people out to assist with that and to weatherize people's homes, to make them more efficient. And that benefits the individual, the homeowner, their citizens themselves with reduced energy bills while creating jobs. I mean, it seems so simple. It seems so clear cut. And it's just really, it's so frustrating. And I can imagine how frustrating it must be for y'all at Energy Alabama when you have options on the table that could actually really help Alabamians and help our environment as well. And the Public Service Commission is just obstinate.
Yeah, I want to say two quick things, if I can, about energy efficiency. One is that there is not a single industry in all of America that creates more jobs per dollar invested than energy efficiency. It creates the most jobs of any industry. And it makes sense for a variety of reasons, but the chief among them is the fact that what you just got at, right? Energy efficiency is a labor-intensive business. You've got to get people out in homes. You got to get people out in businesses to do projects. They got to build stuff. They got to retrofit things. And so that puts people to work. And then the second is that I think even though we don't have any energy efficiency in Alabama, I still want us to be intentional about if it ever comes to this day where we get a public service commission that's awake, I want to make sure that those energy efficiency programs are targeted at especially low to moderate income residents, who are going to be the ones that are most struggling with their utility bills. They're going to be the ones that are living in the housing stock that is in most need of upgrade. And we cannot forget renters. We can't forget apartment complexes, mobile homes, things of that nature, where I think when you look at some programs around the country, even those that do really well, they're still leaving a lot of people out because they're not capturing those types of residents of the state who need the help the most.
Right.
I think that's huge. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, what I'm hearing is economic development. And, politicians love to talk about economic development, but in their eyes, it's almost always, tax giveaways and subsidies and incentives to some out-of-state corporation who wants non-union labor, typically. But what you just described is a huge opportunity for economic development in the state of Alabama that would help the people who are doing the work and help the people who are getting serviced by the work.
Yeah. It's a real shame that they're I almost say playing politics, but I don't even know that that's just allowing themselves to be played by the people who are going to benefit from it. And I really, really do not think that what we're talking about right now is very very controversial, and I think that it's super common sense, and I think that that's why you're not going to hear this kind of critique of Alabama Power in other, news entertainment places. It's because if you go to people and they begin to have more of an understanding of just how kind of craven the Public Service Commission has been in service of Alabama Power and the utility companies in Alabama, I think that I think that people are going to have an issue with that, and I don't think that it takes you being particularly radical on the left end of the spectrum to understand that. With that, though, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I said it sure doesn't. We talk to people across the political spectrum who are pretty outraged.
Let's talk about then the Inflation Reduction Act, and this is a bit more political, but I do think that there's I think that it's important to have maybe a clear-eyed view of actually what it does. And I sent you the first thing that made me think, oh, okay, I want to get Daniel on, and it ended up probably we'll spend the least amount of time on this, but that's fine. We had a lot of other good stuff to talk about. Twinkle Kavanaugh, our Public Service Commission president, had an article in Yellowhammer News about how this is a socialist boondoggle, the Inflation Reduction Act, and that's actually going to increase energy prices somehow. So can you work that out for us, Daniel?
I wish I could. In this particular case, you're looking at a bill here that does a lot in the energy sector. And I should note that, and we can talk more about it, some interesting labor provisions in here as well. Y'all are way smarter than I am on what these will mean at the end of the day. But if you look at the bill as a whole, it is more than paying for itself. So any money that's being spent by the federal government for, say, tax credits for renewable energy or electric vehicles or things like that to help us reduce fossil fuel consumption or increase production, period, because we're going to need more juice with more EVs and things out there. It's being paid for and then some. So I'm not really sure how we get to a world where this is a boondoggle that is going to increase our costs. That just is completely divorced from reality. But
not only is it paid for, I mean, like, it's paid for and a half. Like, it raises $700 billion in revenue, and it only spends something like $350 billion. There's $300 or $400 billion going to deficit reduction, which I think probably is not particularly helpful. But whatever. If it got Manchin to sign on to it, then fine, I guess. But I can't understand. I don't understand even how. I don't even understand the theoretical argument about what energy provisions are in there that would hypothetically increase costs. It just seems to me like, oh, it's a Democratic bill. I'm going to pretend like it's bad.
Yeah. I would say that, there is, again, that position is divorced from reality.
Tell us then about the reality. As soon as you finish that point, then what are the energy provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yeah, I was going to say that even if you believed that this was like, say there wasn't going to reduce the deficit, or that wasn't paid for, from the state level and down, like, okay, well, let's just assume that were the case. Like, that's a federal problem that the federal government's going to have to fix. From an Alabama power ratepayer, an Alabama Public Service Commission standpoint, these are still credits that are going to reduce the cost to do things. And that can be for Alabama Power to do things. That can be for consumers to do things. And so at the end of the day, even if this bill were not paid for, which it is, or that it wasn't even paid for in the half, which it is, it would still be reducing the cost of new energy supplies. So that's why the theoretical argument is so hard for you to understand, because it's so hard for me to understand. It's like, these are things that by their very definition reduce the cost of acquiring new energy sources. So it's, again, just divorced from reality. It's political grandstanding, but par for the course for this commission.
Right. So what are some of the energy provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that I thought were pretty interesting that I wanted to bring up today, and that is, it's an extension of tax credits for renewable energy. Most people are familiar with a solar tax credit or a wind production tax credit. So there's a variety of provisions in there that will extend those credits, eventually make them technology agnostic. So basically, as long as there's zero carbon, credits, go out. There's also some credits in there for nuclear power plants, especially those that are economically disadvantaged, to keep them online. That's another thing important to the labor community. One thing that I wanted to mention from a labor perspective is that I feel very strongly about is that this has been a critique of the renewable energy industry, and rightfully so, that it has not been a very organized area of the economy. And so a lot of people would say, well, why do I want to lose good union paying jobs in one industry to, prop up another industry that doesn't have that? And this is the first time I think I've seen where these credits are being tied to different levels of Buy American provisions, different levels of apprenticeship and prevailing wage. So for instance, the 30%, tax credit for solar and wind and things like that would actually drop to just a 6% credit based on what I'm reading if prevailing wages and apprenticeship targets are not met. Now, of course, there's some interesting talk there about, well, who's going to enforce this? And I don't necessarily have all the answers to that type of thing. But in order to get the full tax credit, companies are going to have to be paying prevailing wage. They're going to have apprenticeship programs. And then there's even some awesome adders on top of that. So you can get more than 30% tax credit for using a certain percentage of American made steel, iron, manufactured products and things like that. If you're working in a community that's been disadvantaged by the reduction in the coal workforce, you get an extra credit on top of that. If it's for low income houses or low income communities, you get a credit even on top of that. So they have been thoughtful in thinking, how do we make sure that these credits are going to projects that are paying good wages, that are building a good workforce for the long haul, and delivering benefits to the people who need them the most, the communities that have been hit hardest so far, and those that are struggling with the highest burdens and utility bills. So I'm not saying this is going to solve all the problems. It's definitely not. But this is the first piece of legislation I've ever seen address those issues in clean energy, and that makes me very happy to see.
Yeah, and I was not aware of several of those. I know that you were soliciting some stuff from folks on Twitter, but I didn't catch a lot of that. That is some really, really fantastic stuff from somebody who has a particular interest in organized labor. But even as, these things that you were talking about, they benefit workers whether or not they are in unions. Prevailing wage is whether or not you're in a union, you get prevailing wage on a prevailing wage contract. All of these things, it's not union specific. Of course, union contractors are going to have an easier time of doing that because they haven't been skating by on paying people starvation wages, and so they're going to be more used to, paying people what they're worth, and it's going to be easier for them to kind of swallow that. But they don't have to be a union contractor to get these benefits. They just have to pay people, good things and teach them well. This is something that people really don't understand. I think that aren't familiar with trades work is that my understanding is that non-union contractors, to the extent that they have apprenticeship programs, they are teach to the task. You don't really become a tradesman. You might become well-skilled in whatever particular job you are going to be working for that contractor, but you will not become a skilled electrician. You as a craft. You will not become a skilled iron worker. You will not become, a skilled pipe fitter. Whereas these union apprenticeship programs and these apprenticeship programs that are Department of Labor certified, which are mostly union apprenticeship programs, which I'm assuming is the apprenticeship requirements that were tied to that, because it seems like that's normally what happens. Those are just categorically different than what you're going to get in non-union ABC contractors. So this is all really good stuff to hear, Daniel. I appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this.
Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing, that on the electric vehicle side, they have removed the cap. General Motors and Tesla hit their cap. So there'll be a lot more vehicles that are eligible for the tax credit. And they also did the same thing. They broke the tax credit in two, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but half of the credit is available for, vehicles under a certain price, and then trying to, encourage more affordable vehicles to the masses, and then also encouraging assembly and sourcing of batteries and production of batteries and things like that in the U.S. So again, another good thing for workers here in the U.S.
That's awesome. All very good things to hear, Daniel. We appreciate your time. How can folks find out more?
Yeah, if you want to find out more about us, please go to energyalabama.org. We got plenty of stuff out on our website, and then we're on all the major social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and especially snarky TikTok account. So at Energy Alabama.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.